The topic of the seminar, as you all know, is addressing problem behaviors in children with autism spectrum disorders. I am going to share a whole family approach. Okay, a whole family approach means I want to give you suggestions and techniques that the whole family can use with children with autism or individuals with autism. It can apply to toddlers, it can apply to adults. So we just have to adapt the techniques age appropriately. Okay, so first of all, I want to share my experiences with autism. When I first joined NIMH, as it was called, that is NIPID, I only knew the definition of autism. Beyond that, I didn't know anything. So Padma Madam was the principal of SEC. And then, so I went and expressed my desire to learn more about autism. What happened was, I was appointed as a teacher in the class for the children with severe profound intellectual disabilities, as it was called then. So I was noticing that most of my children were twirling their fingers, rocking, they were non-verbal, they were making humming noises. It looked very much like autism to me. So I wanted to learn more. Went to Bangalore from Hyderabad. I did the training at my own cost, and then I came back. I felt so much better having learned something that I could help parents and children and individuals. And then there was no going back. I gradually learned from every child that I met. In NIMH, I had worked with more than 300 families who had children with autism, and I'm very, very, very grateful for that opportunity that NIMH provided me to learn about autism and to be able to share my knowledge that I acquired over the years to help families and children. One very popular story that I told in the other meetings also, and I share in my class, is in NIMH, parents would come from all different parts of India, from rural areas, from villages, from tribal areas, from urban areas. So it was important for me to communicate what is autism in a way that every parent could understand, regardless of their awareness level or regardless of their educational background. The parents said in Telugu, "Chetulu eppudu itla 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 kodutuntadu, chetulu itla aadutuntadu." That means he is flapping his hands, he is rocking. What do I do? I'm very distressed. So I asked her, "What is your background?" So she said, "We have a farm. We work in the farm." So I said, "Enduku behavior, why should you change it? Why don't we use that behavior for some meaningful activity?" And I said, "If he's flapping his hands, can you make him like a scarecrow who is shooing away the birds?" You know, everybody, we all laughed at that suggestion. But it was a critical suggestion I gave because I was trying to differentially reinforce a good behavior, meaningfully channelize the behavior, something that the child could use. Okay, it was a nice suggestion, the parent thought. And also another thing I did was strengths, weaknesses, and allergies and medications. I made a list. I did this for every child every individual with autism that I worked there with. And then we prioritized goals, and then we worked on that. I know it is a difficult time. Everybody is under lockdown, and I really, really wish that all of you are safe and well. And I know it can be stressful for people without disabilities, as we are so called. But I think everybody there's a thin line between ability and disability. So it depends on, how much it prevents us from being independent and lead our lives independently. That is the critical thing. So I don't like to go by the labels. Jayanti Madam, Dr. Jayanti Narayan was the first person who taught me the importance of not labeling and not focusing on labels. I want to pause a minute, Rajesh. Seriya kekurda. Yesterday's Vipassana, I have to practice now and I have to calm down. I really, really appreciate your patience, and I'm very blessed to have such high interest in my humble experience. I want to thank you so much. It connects me deeply with India and it's like I never left India, and that's a thrilling feeling. Believe me, it's a thrilling feeling. I want to give some examples of the behavior of children with autism that everybody finds it puzzling. So you want to change that behavior because it looks different. It is not what your normal, so-called normal children are doing. So you want to change it. So my question is, why do we have to force them to be so-called normal? Can we accept them as they are? They are born with certain traits, certain genetic component, certain behavior inherent that is inherently different from people without autism. So personally, if you ask me, if you forcibly hold the child's hand and make him not flap his hand, it's not advisable at all. To me, it's as good as a crime. Unless the child is harming himself, if the child is hitting himself, if the child is butting his head, banging his head, pinching and gouging his hand, these are self-injurious behaviors. Those only you have to stop. If the child is twirling his fingers like this or flapping his hands like this, please do not stop it. What we can do is the suggestions that I am going to give you now. Okay? For example, there was one child who would play with Montessori blocks in the room in NIMH upstairs that I was working with. And his favorite object was a blue triangle Montessori block, the geometrical solid. So he would take that blue triangle and hold it in his left hand. And then when I walked him through daily life skills and functional academics, as long as the blue triangle was in his hand, he would do everything. He would participate very meaningfully and appropriately in the activity. So, should I take away the blue triangle? I tried. When I tried to take away the blue triangle from his hand, it resulted in extreme distress. He was creating such temper tantrum. He was just rolling on the floor and crying and crying and crying. My heart literally broke. And then the parent was also there. We decided, okay, you want the blue triangle? Here, please keep it in your left hand. Once, it was like magic. It was like a switch was turned off. The minute I gave him his favorite desired object in his left hand, he became calm and he started working on the functional academic skills. Another child had a stick and a thread in her hand, and she would always look at it and she would be very happy. I didn't want to take that happiness from her. So that's what I'm saying. Our children, individuals with autism, will have these very individual, idiosyncratic, as it is called. Some people will call it peculiar, some people will call it bizarre. Whatever name you want to give, children have these behaviors. Our job as therapists, our job as parents, as caregivers, as administrators, is to make sure that we accept the behavior. First, accept the behavior. Another thing, stress. Now, due to COVID, there is a lot of stress and anxiety in people without disabilities. Not just people with disabilities, but for people with disabilities, especially people with autism who have limited communication skills. Some communicate beautifully, but many do not communicate in the socially required manner. So the stress level must be higher, just that they are expressing it in a different way. So make sure that you understand they express in different ways. They are expressing. If they're crying, they're expressing. If they're twirling their hands, fingers, they're expressing. If they're rocking, they're expressing. If they're rolling on the floor, they're expressing. There is a lot of research on nonverbal communication. So this is very, very indicative of communication using body language. That is what our children with autism are good at. They're good at expressing through body language, expressing through visual means. We know that there's a lot of research to show that. First thing, I'm going to give you a triadic model. So the first one is COVID crisis is there. So what you should do when COVID crisis, the COVID virus is going to affect everybody. Should you panic? Should you call the police? Should you call the Prime Minister? Should you call the President? Wherever you are? No, that's not what you should be doing. What you should do is accept. Acceptance. First, accept that the virus has affected the world, not only India, not only America, not only Singapore or Japan or China. It has affected the world. First of all, we have to accept that. So once we accept that, then we have to model that acceptance. In the triadic model that I created, first thing is acceptance of the crisis situation. For example, the current situation of the COVID virus affecting a large section of humanity. So once you accept that, it is important as you as a parent, you as a therapist, you as a caregiver, model that acceptance. How are you going to model that acceptance? First of all, you're going to be calm, okay? Take a deep breath, be very calm. Deliberately tell yourself, I am going to be calm. Right now, even Sri Krishna Garu was advising me, Rama Garu, please be calm and then you will do this. We know you can do this. I will help you. So there is always help. Don't forget. The world around you is going to help you. It's first your job and your effort to stay calm. Once you stay calm, your breathing becomes normal. Then that you have to model to your children. Model it to your children without disabilities. Model it to your spouse. Model it to your parents. And then, of course, model it to your child or individual child with autism spectrum disorder. I will give an example of what being calm means. I worked as a special teacher for 2 years. I was a teacher for children with moderate intellectual disabilities. And my children were angels just because I was an angel is what I tell everybody. I just brag about that. Why I am saying that is that no matter what difficult behaviors the children were exhibiting, I never lost my cool. I was calm, and my body language and my breathing and my facial expression, everything showed that I am calm. I know it is not you. You are not personally targeting me. I know you are trying to be a nice child. So I am going to be calm. In the next room was the room for children with emotional disorders. And there it was like cursing. The morning and evening and afternoon, the children were cursing, spitting, hitting. People were calling the police. Here in America, they call 911. If the child looks like he's hurting himself or hurting others, they call the police, and the police come and escort the child out, or the parent comes and escorts the child out. So the paraeducator, the teacher assistant in this class was highly stressed. Do you blame her? Imagine coming to school at 7:30 in the morning and then you are spat at and you are pinched at and you're poked and you're hit and your knee is broken, your elbow is broken, children get violent, children threaten to blow up the school. I mean, how can you deal with this? How can you be calm in face of such extreme behaviors? I'm not saying everybody behaves like that, but there are children who can be extremely violent and aggressive. So the paraeducator would come to my class during lunchtime and say, I'm coming to your class because I want some calming effect from your class. So she walked away from this, came to my class, cooled down, and then she went back. So one technique is that have a cool down place in the house. Okay, put a nice couch, put a nice sofa, or put a nice pillow or a rug or a blanket and make this a comfy, cozy corner. Okay, let you or your child or your family members take time to go to the cool down corner. Just sit and breathe. Just close eyes and sit and breathe for a few minutes. I promise you that's going to have a calming effect on you. Give it a try. Okay. So modeling acceptance by you being calm is the first needed strategy. Then don't discuss overly about the COVID virus. Oh, in China such thing happened. Oh, Chinese are to blame, or Americans are to blame, or Indians are to blame, or Pakistanis, or Japanese. Avoid that. Don't don't engage in that blaming, which is not going to serve any purpose. It is only going to add to your anxiety, and that anxiety and stress will be communicated to you. So just read the news, but just be aware of the latest facts and just keep it to yourself. If you want, you can discuss it with another adult like your spouse or your parent in a calm manner, and you're just discussing facts. You're not a researcher yet. If among you there is a researcher, very good, hats off to you. If among you there is a doctor or a nurse, wonderful, you're doing amazing service. But avoid discussing it at the dinner table. Avoid discussing it early in the morning. First thing in the morning, you get up and you read news and you want to talk about COVID virus. Please avoid that. Okay? So that is in the first model. Still in the first strategy, you must offer reassurance to your children. You as the parent, you as the spouse should offer reassurance to old people in your house, to young people in your house, to people with autism in your house. You must offer that reassurance. Calming music, you can play calming music. Instrumental music is something that is recommended in research. If good classical music or folk music, anything that you like, bhajan or devotional song, avoid loud metallic sound music. That doesn't help towards reducing anxiety at all. Also, when you're playing music for children with autism, be very, very, very aware that they have selective response to sounds. Okay? It is the myth that all children with autism like music. No. That is not the correct assumption. Children with autism, many of them, brain research shows that they like musical stimuli. Doesn't mean that the whole world, individuals with autism, like music or like particular type of music. So play music, play the child's favorite music. You can put headphones, have the child go to this comfy cozy corner and listen to that calming music. That is the first strategy. Second strategy is prevention. What are we preventing? We are preventing behavior from occurring. So how are we preventing behavior from occurring? Can we prevent? Absolutely. What I would do, what many people are hesitant to do, is sit with the child, sit with the individual, ask him or her, what is happening, my child? What can I do to help you? Why are you crying? Why are you banging your head? Is it hurting somewhere? Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you trying to express something? I will try to understand. Again, calm demeanor, speak softly and lovingly. Respect the child. He will communicate somehow. He may communicate by eye gaze. He may communicate by showing some object that he wants. He may communicate by calming down when you ask a certain question. So, important is you made that effort to ask the child, why are you behaving in this agitated manner? Just because the child cannot speak, I apologize, don't presume that he is not understanding. Also, remember, when you speak with children with autism, there is delayed auditory recall. Rajesh, will you note down? Delayed auditory recall. Okay? That means when you talk, the child is taking time to process what you're saying. The child will first hear you, then he will analyze and decode the words, then he will analyze and decode the meaning. There's a lot of things happening here. So it takes individuals with autism a little longer to process your question. So when you ask one question, give the child time to think and respond. Don't ask the question 100 times and say, "Evlo dara kekano, enni sarla adagala, eshtu sati kelbeku, kitne baar पूछना है?" ऐसे थोड़ी नहीं बोलना है. Don't say that. Ask the question once, wait for the child to respond. So delayed auditory recall can trigger a lot of problematic behavior. If therapists, adults, teachers respect that delay and wait for the child to respond, please understand the child will respond somehow. He will not respond in the conventional way maybe, but you will see a response. Try it. I have worked with children. I am telling you this from experience and from research. So second one is preventing of triggering the behavior. Okay, but just talking to the child. Just calmly talk to your child. Okay, you also at the same time make sure you practice deep breathing. You are a human being. Everybody is human being, and having an individual with autism in the family can create a lot of stress. There's a high rate of divorce among families. It creates a lot of financial burden. The parents' time, emotion, effort, energy, everything is exhausted when you have a child with. There are many individuals with autism who don't cause this stress, but there's a large percentage of individuals with autism, because we don't understand them, it is leading to stress. I'm not blaming them. We have to understand. We so-called people without autism must understand what is happening and how that person with autism is functioning in this world, how he or she is making sense of the world. We have to change. Okay, you be the change. Don't force the child to modify his behavior yet before you change. Okay, exercise. What exercise? What do they mean? Physical exercise? Thank you very much. I was coming to the first strategy. The third in prevention is to prepare. And how you prepare is, first is you tell a social story. Okay, every people working in the field of autism are familiar. This is a highly effective method of teaching children appropriate behavior. So what you do is create a social story. Rajesh, there is a link where a person has created already a very simple storybook and it is available for the world. I will send you the link. Okay, it is specifically created like a social story for COVID virus. Okay, so social story is an amazing effective method. Social story is simple. Okay, you want a child to know about the virus. You and the sibling who doesn't have autism can sit and create that social story. What is COVID-19? It is a disease caused by a virus. Okay, that is your first sentence. Okay, the virus is something that cannot be seen by the naked eye. That's your next sentence. Okay, if you want to see the virus, scientists can see it through very powerful microscope. That is the third sentence. Fourth sentence, what does the virus do to human beings and animals? You can say the virus can cause this and this symptom. So cough and dryness and blocked nose or whatever the symptoms are, you tell it bullet points, like bullet points. You write the story in very small sentences. And then what should I do because what has happened in the world due to the virus. So the world leaders are telling us to be in a lockdown. What is a lockdown? Lockdown means we have to stay at home as much as possible. Only adults who need to go to work, essential services adults are allowed to go to work. That's it. So you create the story. Now because this is going to be a big story, you can divide it into chapters. And once you create the story, you can say, you can teach the story. You can recite the story like a shloka. And you can even put music to it. Children will love it. And you recite the story to this child with autism every day. Every day as long as the lockdown period lasts. Okay. So social stories can be used to teach any skill under the sun to your child with autism. Okay. So I'm talking about these are the so-called evidence-based strategies. That means these are lot of scientists all over the world have done repeated research on these strategies, and the University of North Carolina team reviewed all the articles and they found out 59 articles were published which pointed out to some top practices which were evidence-based. Social story is one. The second social evidence-based practice is video modeling. Rajesh, Elvikungo, video modeling. Okay. In video modeling, what you can do is take a video modeling. You take a video of the child engaging in correct behavior. Take a video of the child engaging in the undesirable behavior. And then you and the child sit and watch the video. Okay. Once many children with autism, I learned that they are not even aware of how their behavior is affecting others. Okay. So once you make a video of their behavior, they realize, okay, I'm doing this. Oh my goodness, I'm doing this. And then you can teach them what is socially acceptable and what is not socially acceptable. Video modeling has been very successfully used by researchers and practitioners all over the world, and it is known to be highly effective as per research. Okay. Third is sibling modeling, I call it. Siblings, brothers, sisters, grandparents, whoever is in the house, they model the correct behavior. The less you say don't do this, the better. Instead of saying don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, how many times I told you? They'll say 10 times, 100 times. Children with autism are very literal. If you ask them, how many times I told you? It's like Rajinikanth. It's not that. So don't repeat yourself. Just go ahead, tell once, wait for the delayed auditory recalling process to happen, and then model. Okay, adults and siblings should model the appropriate behavior instead of saying don't do this, don't do that, how many times I told you not to do this. Okay, then engage the child during COVID lockdown. Engage the child in household activities. Depending on how old the child is, give the activity. Okay, bring the plate for food, wash the plate, clean the area where you have to sit and eat. I understand some people sit at the dining table, some people sit down, which is okay. Whichever place, the child's responsibility becomes to prepare that place for eating. Take a clean cloth, take some water, clean the area, bring the plates. So when you're engaging the child in household activity like cooking, like preparing for meals, like sorting vegetables, like cleaning the house, mopping, doing gardening, washing clothes, washing dishes, you can do a running commentary and teach academic skills, functional academic skills. Okay, household work and functional academic skills can go together. So that is the second strategy, is preventing. Third strategy is teaching. Teach them specific skills. Teach them, I am big on physical activity. Okay, physical exercise is kind of underrated. Please don't do that. Give high importance to physical activity, physical exercise. So when you're sweeping the house, when you're mopping the house, when you're washing clothes, when you're gardening, when you're digging, you're engaging in physical activity. Make it a little more rigorous so that the muscles get stronger and the body gets more fit. You can do in the house what a simple thing you can do is create a hurdles race in the house. So put cushions, put mattresses, put blankets, any soft cloth you can get, and have the child jump on different surfaces. Make sure you supervise that activity. Make sure the child doesn't fall and hurt himself or herself. If you see on YouTube, there are parents creating such beautiful hurdle races in the house. So whatever facility you have in the house, based on that, you can create simple physical activity in the house where the child is expected to move, jump, run, catch, dodge a ball, depending on your convenience, depending on where you live. If you have a yard, if you have a large room, if you have a basement, whatever the area in your house is, try to creatively use that to make sure the child engages in physical exercise. Of course, there are yogasanas. Of course, there are isometric exercises. Of course, there are tons of formal exercises. I will leave it to you to choose what you want. But important to understand, as long as the child doesn't have any physical disability, the young person or the with autism is capable of doing the same physical exercises as an individual without autism. Okay, important, you go slow, you go step by step, and you supervise. Make sure the child doesn't hurt himself or herself. One isometric exercise example I can give you. Isometric is bearing weights, right? It is improving the arm strength, it's improving the grip. So what you can do is, you can fill rice in 2 small bags, you know. I think in Tamil Nadu, the Inji bag used to be very popular. Manjal and Inji bags used to be very popular, cloth bags. So you fill rice, or you fill dal, or you fill godimava, or anything, pindi, atta, kuch bhi usme bhariye, or and make sure the child lifts it. Okay. Okay, we will go on detail on physical exercises, but simple thing is, you can fill 1 kg, 2 kg, and then have the child lift the weight. Okay, that's one exercise. I'm just giving you an example. You be creative, and you can take the suggestion from a coach, talk to a gym coach, talk to a physical trainer, and get some exercises, and you can adapt them to your needs in the house. Make sure that you don't just look up some exercise, complicated exercise on YouTube and try it out. We don't want you to hurt yourself. We don't want your child with autism to injure his muscles. Please don't do that, okay? So this one simple exercise I told you is safe. Just fill 1 or 2 kgs rice in a bag and walk around the house with that bag. It makes it a fun activity also. Not for long, just for a few minutes. Don't make him do it all day long or for hours together. That is very harmful. Regarding specifically skills to cope with the COVID virus situation, you know. Okay, what I was thinking was very basic, Rajesh, like wear a mask if you are in a social situation. Wash your hands, like our Prime Minister is recommending. Policemen are demonstrating. Sanitizing, hand sanitizing, you know. Making sure you maintain social distance. I can't see on my phone, Baba. Can you read the question for me? He's chewing the shirt. Okay. So chewing, what I understood is that it's a behavior that is inherent in the child. Again, if you curb that inherent urge, it's going to create a lot of distress in the child. So you can channelize the chewing into a very meaningful and socially acceptable and healthy activity. So what you must do is replace that chewing. So in India, this is my favorite example, and this has worked very well. You get something called vada, sandige. I don't know what you emantaru Telugulo. It's a cooked and steamed rice. You know, like a papad. Like a papad, but it's more solid. You deep fry that and you enjoy it, right? So, instead of deep frying it, you steam it. Steam chesisi, ee child ki ivandi. They can chew on that. That is very safe. That is edible, and you have done it at home. So it's going to replace. Somehow it will satisfy the craving for chewing, and then gently remove the shirt and replace the vada in his hand. Okay, chew this, not this. Do this, not this. Whenever you want to replace undesirable behavior, you have to create an alternative, socially acceptable behavior. Okay? If you say stop chewing the shirt, the child will not listen to you. Okay? But he wants to chew. That craving is there. It is important you respect that. And so you can, one example is, give something edible to chew. How old is the child? First of all, we have to understand why the child is resistant to potty training. Potty training is very complicated for individuals with autism because they have differential reaction to sensory stimuli. Okay, that means they are particular about how the bathroom is smelling. They are particular about how the toilet seat feels. They are particular about whether they have to squat down on an Indian toilet or sit up on a Western toilet. These sensory reactions to sensory stimuli affect at the rate of which the child becomes toilet trained. You have to be very patient. You have to see what works for the child in the toilet, in the bathroom. Create some sensory experience that is pleasant to the child. Maybe play calming music. His favorite thing can be kept in the toilet, in the bathroom. And then every time he uses the bathroom, reward with that favorite thing or activity or the music or the even food reinforcement. Whatever you give, make sure you first create a safe toilet space for the child. Very, very, very important. Is he verbal or non-verbal? Is he verbal, non-verbal? Huh? I understand. Correct, correct. Many children with autism are verbal, but they don't use it for social communication. But when you pair the verbal with visual, then the communication gets better. So what you do is create a visual symbol, visual board or photograph. You paste it on a chart and say, want to go to toilet, he has to point, go. And then when he points to go, you pair it with going to the toilet. Pair the visual command with verbal command. It helps. It helps. Give it a try. There's a lot of research to show that visual supports help children perform their daily living activities successfully. So make a visual schedule and say, when you want to go to toilet, point to toilet. Go. Next question. Forced to do on Indian or forced to do on Western? Please do not force. I will tell you a simple way to make the Indian toilet Western. Take a stool, a wooden stool, that short stool. Cut a circle in this, go to a carpenter or take a saw and cut a circle in the center. Let the child sit on that stool. Okay? On that stool, put a favorite fabric that the child likes, like a small rug or some small blanket or small shawl or even the child's own shirt, old one. You put on the rim of that adapted toilet. It will work. Give this a try. I have seen this work. Chalungo. Yeah, next. See, what happens with self-stimulatory behaviors is that they occur by accident to begin with. And then, because it was not stopped when it began, because we are not noticing the child 24 hours, it is not possible sometimes to determine when the self-stimulatory behavior began. Once he bit, he liked it. So he wants to do it more. And he kept doing it, it became a habit. That is a very challenging habit to reduce. So what you can only do, applied behavior analysis technique, in that they will say reinforce the positive behavior. So when the child is not biting, you make it a big deal. Okay? Oh, you didn't bite. Oh, fantastic. Oh, your hand is free. Oh, your mouth is free. This is beautiful. And give some food reward. Give a lot of reward during the time when the individual is not biting. By doing that, you are paying less attention to the biting and the likelihood of that biting behavior will reduce. It is in applied behavior analysis technique, Andi Krishna Garu. So you can explain that further to your clients. What visual perception? For reading, what is the visual perception she wants? Can she ask herself? Neha. The issue here is not visual perception. Okay. Visual perception in scientific terminology has a very specific meaning. Visual perception refers to how the mind and the brain actually processes objects in the environment. It's not about vision. It is different from vision. Please understand. It's about the functioning in the brain itself. How the brain is taking in the visual stimuli and making meaning out of it. Okay. That is visual perception. It particularly affects children with learning disability who cannot see the letters correctly. They see letters jumbled, they see letters reversed, they see letters ulta, the same thing I'm telling in Hindi. So visual perception is how they perceive an object in relation to the background. Okay, that is related. So, for example, how they perceive a printed matter in a book, how they see black letters on white page, how they see green letters on yellow page. So that is example of visual perception. What could have the person meant is that visual skills are highly developed in many children with autism actually, and if you use visual supports, you will be able to help the child participate in the classroom activity. Rajesh and Krishna Garu, there is a software called Board Maker by Mayer Johnson. We all have used it. We all have used it years and years and years. So Mayer Johnson visual support, Google lo kuda it's available free. There are tons of examples. Just print out what is necessary for your classroom and you can use it to help the child listen to you in the classroom and perform the desired activity. Okay. Hyperactivity also is inherent. Okay. So there are many theories on why hyperactivity happens. Okay. So there could be allergy, there could be food related issues. Often I have read extensively that food additives, you know, sugar, refined flour, refined products, artificial food color. There's a lot of correlation studies between food, the type of food that the child consumes and the hyperactivity. So maybe you want to take a closer look at what type of food you all are consuming and what type of food the child is having. That's one way to understand if there is a correlation in your child between food and hyperactivity. One thing. Second thing, hyperactivity and so closely associated with ADHD. There is not a lot of brain imaging to point out to a causation. Okay, so at the present moment, we have to think of what we can do. My child is hyperactive, we are locked down. What we can do? People without ADHD, without autism only are feeling jittery and hyperactive. So we can't blame this person with autism for being hyperactive. Only thing you can do is again make sure that you have a routine. As soon as you get up, do this. Second, do this. Third, do this. Fourth, do this. Fifth, do this. Take that visual schedule, print it off, make a routine, and then make a checkbox next to the routine. You can draw it yourself. You don't have to print if you don't have a printer. You can draw it. Your child without autism can draw it. Many children with autism themselves can draw it. Draw the schedule, okay, and then put a check mark after each activity is completed. If you're keeping your child meaningfully engaged throughout the day, his body, his craving for movement is being satisfied by the exercises I told you, remember? Exercises, board games, household activities. If you keep the child engaged throughout, the energy, the extra energy will be meaningfully channelized. You can't literally hold the child tight and make him unhyperactive. That is harmful. Please don't do that. So to reduce stereotypic behaviors like this, video modeling has helped. Video modeling has helped. So another thing, if you don't have a camera and you can't take a video or you have less space on your phone, you hold a mirror in front of the child. Okay, the child gets to see what he is doing. It's important you bring the behavior to the conscious awareness of the child. Often the children are not aware of how they are behaving. What hand movements, motor movements, repetitive movements they are doing, they're not aware. First step is making them aware. Okay. Recently I was reading on sleep disorders and sleeping difficulty in individuals with autism, and the researchers recommend that you create a sleep routine. Okay. So say 15 to 20 minutes before you think it is bedtime, make a ritual, you know, light off cheyala, then calming music play cheyala, then lie down and just engage in regular breathing, have a comfortable room and mattress, make sure the temperature is, have a fan on or have the AC on, depending on the how your house is wired with these cooling and heat systems. Make sure the temperature is conducive. Tell this to others. Sleep routine. Sleeping area is important. It has to be comfortable. The smell, remember the sensory stimulation. So he is not able to hold the water glass in his hand to drink water. Okay. So again, it is the touch. They are very sensitive to touch. They are aversive to certain textures, and they like certain textures. So try giving different cups. Give a steel cup, give a ceramic cup, give a plastic cup, give a bottle. Try to give different utensils and see what the child likes. And then the child is likely to drink water. It's a sensory issue. Thank you so much, Rajesh. Number Government of India rules alla follow pannu. Okay, very good, very good. So Krishna Garu, I want to appreciate your support yesterday and everybody's patience and the opportunity you gave me yesterday. I couldn't hear the vote of thanks yesterday and I couldn't acknowledge also. So I'm taking this opportunity. Thank you very much. And for today, I want to appreciate your student Shavina, the Ame Peru. Shavi Singh, I really appreciate your prompt thinking and your thinking on your feet, in fact, and coming up with innovative solutions that really worked. Hello, Shavi Singh. So nice to meet you. Where are you from? Excellent, excellent. All the best for your PhD. Thank you so much. So for today, I want to thank everybody for your patience. I want to thank Rajesh and NIPID, Himanshu, and everybody else. The person, I think Satish helped with the technology support with Rajesh. Whoever picked up the phone call, whoever picked up the emails, I want to thank everybody. And I want to thank you mainly for this repeated opportunity that I'm getting to be connected back with the families in India. I was really missing it. And this kind of opens the channel for me. We shall overcome this. We will surely overcome this crisis. Yeah? Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, madam. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to propose vote of thanks. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India, for sharing this webinar extensively on the Twitter platform. I would also like to thank Dr. Himanshu Das, Director, NIEPMD, Dr. A. Amarnath, Acting Director and Head of the Department, Social Work. Would also like to extend my thanks to Deputy Registrar Administration, Account Section, Estate and Maintenance, my own very technical staff for helping me in coordinating this webinar. I would like to also thank Krishna Sir from NIPID and Chavi Singh for creating this webinar platform. My special thanks are to Dr. Rama Kausik, Associate Professor in Special Education, Purdue University, for her extensive talk today on this webinar. My thanks are also to Dr. Paresh Mishra for his technical support. And a very big thanks to all the participants who, in spite of all the technical difficulties, still sticked on to the program and attended the program in a very large number. Thank you all. Stay safe and healthy. Good night.